Okay, let's dive right into this explainer. If you've ever tried to survive a 24-hour toddler babysitting challenge, you know the feeling, the sheer bone-deep exhaustion it brings. Honestly, it can push you so far to the edge that you might actually start relating to the literal bad parenting horror game. You know, the one where a parent morphs into a terrifying entity right inside their own house. Now, I know that sounds extreme, but it highlights a very real, very quiet fear that pretty much every parent carries, the fear of just totally losing control.
So, let me ask you, do you ever feel like the monster in your own home? Picture this. You spend an hour cooking a nice dinner, only for your kid to look at it, call it gross, and you just completely snap. And then you go to bed with that heavy, sinking feeling in your chest, entirely convinced you've messed your kid up forever. Well, our goal today is to shift you away from that reactive guilt and move you toward becoming a proactive, confident leader for your kids.
To get us there, we're going to break this massive challenge down into 5 actionable phases. First, the parenting horror story. Second, becoming a sturdy leader. Third, mastering the mental whiteboard. Fourth, strategic independence. And finally, the magic of repair. All right, let's transform chaos into confidence. Section 1, becoming a sturdy leader. Calm, in control, and unshaken. So here is the absolute core paradigm shift you need to make today. Your kids absolutely do not need a perfect parent. What they actually need is a sturdy leader. And that means being someone who doesn't meet chaos with more chaos. Because let's face it, reactivity creates fear, it doesn't build trust. The biology behind all this chaos really comes down to what we call the caveman brain. For toddlers under 3, the prefrontal cortex, which is the part of the brain that governs reasoning and impulse control, is rapidly developing and it gets easily overloaded. When they melt down, it's not some intentional, manipulative misbehavior. It's really just a neurological release. They literally cannot access logic. Understanding this science helps you meet their caveman moments with calm consistency instead of anger. And you know, your sturdy leadership has to evolve as that brain develops. From 0 to 6 months, it's all about safe sensory exploration. By 2 to 3 years, you have to provide firm, calm limits for that caveman brain because they're going to test boundaries, but they can't actually keep themselves safe yet. But then as they hit 9 to 12 years old, your leadership has to shift again. At that point, you really must embrace their new independence and use a more indirect approach. You know, listening more and interrogating less just to keep their trust. Moving on to Section 2, mastering the mental whiteboard. How to get kids to listen without yelling. Now we're transitioning into the tactical communication tools you need. Because, let's face it, kids have this incredible ability to just hyper-focus on play, and we need a reliable way to bypass that. Have you ever asked your child a question while they're playing and it's like they literally didn't hear you? Well, that's because they are in a state of deep focus. It's basically like they're wearing invisible noise-canceling headphones. So before you give an instruction, you must remove those headphones. You do this by physically crouching down to their eye level, which, by the way, signals safety instead of intimidation, and gently touching their arm or shoulder. Wait for that eye contact to break their focus before you actually start speaking. Once you finally have their attention, you have to understand the mental whiteboard. This is essentially a child's working memory capacity. As adults, our mental whiteboards are pretty large, but a child's whiteboard, it's incredibly small. If you give them 4 instructions at once, like clean your room, get your shoes, grab your bag, and get in the car, their tiny whiteboard completely overflows. And the result? They either do part of it, or they get totally overwhelmed and do absolutely nothing at all. So the absolutely crucial point here is matching your directions exactly to your child's developmental capacity. Let's break this down. At 18 months, they can handle exactly 1 step. Pick up the ball. By 2 years old, they can do 2 related steps, like picking up the ball and putting it in a basket. At 3 years, they can manage 2 unrelated steps. And by 5, they can finally juggle 3 completely unrelated steps. The takeaway, if you want them to listen the first time, you have to speak in a way their brain can actually process. And here is a number that will literally change your daily life, 7 to 10. After you give an age-appropriate instruction, you must give a patient pause of 7 to 10 seconds. You literally just count in your head and wait. Research shows it takes a developing brain this long to process your words, understand them, plan the action, and then actually get their body to move. If you repeat yourself before those 10 seconds are up, you are, in effect, just training them to ignore you. Now notice the subtle but massive shift in our language choices here. On one hand, we have reactive if-then bribery language. You know, if you clean up, you can watch TV. But on the other hand, we have sturdy after-then leadership language. After you clean up, then you can watch a show. Like I said, it's a subtle but massive shift. You aren't bribing them, you are stating a clear, predictable sequence. Say what you mean what you say, and only give instructions that you can actually enforce. All right, Section 3, Strategic Independence, Fostering True Confidence. We are shifting focus here from basic communication and discipline to actively building a child's resilience through what we call strategic friction. There's a massive difference between what we often do and what we actually should do. First, think about rescuing. When you rush in to fix every minor struggle, like, say, doing their homework for them, you are quietly teaching them that they're too fragile to handle the world. It literally steals their confidence. Instead, we want to look at scaffolding. This builds capability. You guide them through the hard task, supporting them, sure, but letting them do the actual work. It teaches them, hey, I can handle this. We see a very similar dynamic between overprotection and true safety. Safety is removing actual hazards, like a choking risk. Overprotection, though, is removing all friction. Have you ever heard of the hygiene hypothesis? It basically suggests that kids need early exposure to microbes to build strong immune systems. Well, there's a psychological equivalent to that. Kids need to eat dirt by engaging with the messy, unpredictable reality of life. Let them experience manageable frustration. It trains their nervous system to know the difference between real danger and just a tough moment. So how do we actually put that into practice? With the 90-second rule. When your baby or toddler encounters a frustrating but completely safe challenge, like maybe a toy's just out of reach, wait 90 seconds before you intervene. Let their brain try to problem solve. Let them tolerate that frustration for a minute and a half. Because when their nervous system records that they tried and survived the struggle, that is when real confidence is planted. And to build up the relational capital required for that kind of independence, you really need this 20-minute daily hack. Spend 20 minutes a day in child-led play. During this time, you give 0 commands and you ask 0 questions. None. You just exist in their world. This deep connection significantly reduces power struggles later in the day simply because they feel seen and secure. Which brings us to Section 4, the magic of repair, rewriting the ending of a bad day. Because let's be totally honest with ourselves. Those moments where you lose your cool and yell, they're completely inevitable. It's pretty much the climax of the parenting experience. But remember this, yelling isn't what messes kids up. Failing to repair the relationship is. Kids are basically meaning-making machines. When an emotional rupture happens and you don't address it, the child's brain automatically writes a story. I'm a bad kid, so this must be my fault. But when you step in and repair that rupture, you actively rewrite that internal story. You teach them that, hey, mistakes happen, but love remains. So the absolutely crucial point here is knowing how to fix it. We use a 4-step framework for repairing these emotional ruptures. Step 1, separate identity. Step 2, self-repair. Step 3, the script. And step 4, reconnection. Let's walk through exactly how to execute this. First things first, you have to do the internal work. Acknowledge that you aren't a monster. You just ran out of resources in that moment. Next, regulate your own nervous system. Step away, take a few deep breaths. Whatever you do, don't go to your kid while you are in a shame spiral, or they will end up feeling responsible for comforting you. Then, you have to take 100% ownership. You use a very specific script. I am sorry I yelled. It is never your fault. And this leads to the most critical warning of this entire explainer. Do not add a but. I mean it. If you say, I'm sorry I yelled, but if you had just listened to me, you instantly transform that beautiful apology into a blame shifter. That single tiny little word completely destroys the repair you were trying to make. You must own your reaction, full stop. Once you've repaired and reconnected, you need tools to prevent the yelling next time. One of the best ones out there is the elevator boundary. Instead of yelling across the room to stop a behavior, use physical proximity. Think about an elevator for a second. You don't stand 10 feet back and yell at the doors to open, right? No, you walk up and press the button. Walk over to your child, use your physical presence, and calmly block or correct the behavior. It removes the yelling entirely. Remember, breaking generational cycles of yelling and reactivity is exactly like learning a brand new language. Your default language might be reactive. This sturdy leadership, it's a new language. You are going to stumble. You are for sure going to make mistakes. But remember, parenting is a practice, not a destination. So please give yourself some grace. And that brings us to the end of our explainer. I want to leave you with a provocative question to reflect on. What is one sturdy when you had this week where you successfully rewrote the ending? Seriously, think about it. Even if the day started with a massive fail, if you stepped up, took ownership, and repaired the relationship, that is a massive victory. Keep that win in mind and just keep practicing. Thank you